done. You may now begin, David Goddard. Thank you.
Well done, Ken. You said for sure you were going to forget to do that, so I was impressed. Let me just bring up my presentation here.
Yeah, I even remembered to make you a present. I have these Post-it notes right here to remind me of what has to happen each time.
And that looks okay. You can see that all right there, Ken?
Perfect.
Wonderful.
Oh, if there are any questions, by the way, I'll keep an eye on chat and see what people have to say.
Yeah, wonderful. And if I miss it, I'll try to keep an eye on it as well. But, you know, I get so excited often I miss it. So anyways, thanks. Please feel free to chat in questions at any time. I'm happy to do the discussion at the end, but also, you know, happy to stop and clarify something for sure as we go through. So a little bit of history on the magic of 13 weeks is that 2 years ago, myself, a few folks in Oliver White from the Americas, a few from Europe and Australia or Asia, we started working on a global project as a company called Integrated Tactical Planning. And it took me a bit to get my head around it. My background is aerospace. I'm a master scheduler by training. I happen to punch into materials management a bit. But that was kind of my core experience. And so to get my head around it, I had some learning to do. And as I got talking with John about how we get communications at multiple levels throughout
I'll try, honey. I can't guarantee it.
At multiple levels in the organization, I said, geez, I think, you know, let me walk through sort of my learning and how, as a team participant, we developed this service, if you will, called Integrated Tactical Planning. And I'll walk people through kind of my learning. So that's where I wanted to start. And I'm excited to have you folks online. So John was very gracious. He said, hey, some folks on the call tonight are not going to know anything about Oliver White. And so just a little history, and I'll get off it. But on your screen, you see Ollie himself. Ollie passed away in 1983, but our company has carried on. It was started in 1969, so not too long ago, we celebrated our 50th anniversary. It was kind of fun. We are a global organization, though small. 65 folks around the world does not make a huge company. We're very honored to work with some great companies around the world. But what our company was started just as computers were starting to get into manufacturing. And Ollie said, you know, we've got people that are used to using Cardex tubs and reorder points, and computers are really going to change the way people think about planning rather than reacting and reordering to actually looking ahead. And we need to educate people because the computer itself is not going to solve the problem. And that was the birth of our company. And so over the years, we've been pioneers. We're actually working side by side with APIX over the years and working together to develop MRP2, sales and operations planning, which is sort of morphed into integrated business planning, which is very frustrating working with SAP. We do a bit around demand planning and some collaborative forecasting. But what you'll find at Oliver White, here's just my sales pitch, and then I'll get off that soapbox. But every one of us has worked in manufacturing. Every one of us has been part of a team that brought our company to Class A. And though we have different backgrounds, whether it's pharma or consumer goods or aerospace like myself, we've all walked a mile in being part of a team that got a company to Class A. And we believe that when you work with us, we're going to get you time to benefits because we've been there, done that. And we're really key on not putting a team on site and saying, hey, we're going to put together all these manuals for you and hand you manuals. We actually want to do education, share that education with you, and then transfer that ownership. So at the end of a project, you are the owners. It's not an Oliver White process anymore. So that's my pitch and a little bit of history there. Thanks for giving me an opportunity just to get that off my chest. I will point out there is a checklist. So if some of you are thinking about you want to test your current processes, this checklist started out as 20 questions back in the early 70s when Ollie's clients used to say, hey, we came to class, we're implementing these things back at our company, and how do we know if we're doing this stuff very well? And Ollie put together this list of 20 questions and said, here's what my best clients say they do really well. And it tested from master data accuracy, inventory accuracy, to my ability to plan and how much training I actually gave my people, which is really why the Oliver White companies have such a great relationship with Apex, because we're all about how do we educate and be able to move manufacturing forward. And so this checklist is now in its 7th edition. It's now 9 chapters. And it was a result of people saying, okay, do I have a good master schedule? Well, what do you mean by that? And so we'd flesh that out a little more, and we'd talk about, firm planned orders and available to promise, right? So those kind of things fleshed it out. So anyways, if you're looking for a way to test a process, the book is divided into chapters, whether it's strategy or your sales and operations planning or procurement. And it just gives you a chance to test, and it might give you some ideas to say, yeah, I get it. We should be doing that. Let's try to figure that one out. So that's a book that we have available. I just want to let you know the 7th edition is the newest edition. And I promise in there, it's all stuff that companies have demonstrated successful. You may say, I took a master's course on this, David, why isn't it in there? And I said, well, until it's proven successful, it's not going to make it in the book. So let me get on to the 13 weeks. Integrated tactical planning has a proper definition. I wanted to talk you through a lot of sort of my learnings, but I thought I'd start with a definition so we're clear. It's a cross-functional process. It is very detailed process. So if you've heard folks talk about sales and operations planning or integrated business planning, whatever term you like to use, that tends to be a process that takes place at the aggregate, at the family level. And integrated tactical planning is right down at the part number level. And it is over that 13 weeks, it's realigning. It's saying, here's what is going well, here's what's not going so well. So let's shift and make sure we're orchestrating these moves. It also looks at the changes of the plans over that 13-week horizon, and it's going to escalate it. So all of a sudden, John was saying, how do we tie multiple levels of a manufacturing organization together? And that's what happens here, is that we'll get changes. And when it's a change is too big to handle by the folks that are executing my plans, whether it's demand plans, supply plans, product plans, we'll execute it to the senior level. So all of a sudden we're tying in that executive level. And it's primary purposes. So it's got a couple there. But one of the things that we see is a lot of companies work really hard to develop sales and operations plan, whether it's a demand plan, a production plan. The executive team is participating. At the end of the process, they stack hands and say, yeah, this is the best plan for us to go forward. And for many companies, they come back month after month and they find out the plan didn't happen. Well, here's what we're working on in integrated tactical planning is while we're getting orders and while we may get some shortages, we're saying, okay, we've optimized our plan. Is it still going to hit the integrated business plan that we committed to the executive team? And if it's not, we're going to communicate early rather than getting into the monthly cycle and saying, oops, yeah, we knew about that 4 weeks ago, but we didn't have a good process to communicate it. So there's a definition, and we can come back to that as need be. I thought I'd just talk a little bit about some of the symptoms that we see when integrated tactical planning is not existent in a company. So here's the top one, and we'll stick to the red ones. There's a few on here, but maybe you've experienced it. Executives continually getting involved in the tactical plans, right? So I have executives on the supply side that are actually helping me put my master schedule together. Maybe I have commercial executives that are looking at the sales tactics going on from week to week. And they're saying, wait a minute, we've got people that are working on it and we understand the direction. Well, I don't need you getting involved in this short-term issue. The management business review is focused on the short term. So if you have a sales and operations planning process, or you've got integrated business planning, either one ends in what we call a management business review. It's the top exec saying, we understand the plans over the horizon. And at Oliver White, we're currently defining the best practice horizon for companies at a minimum of 24 months. So if I have my executive team continually focused on the short term, when are they addressing the critical issues that are 24 months from now? And when I say critical issues 24 months from now, I'm talking about how are we sizing our supply chain? What are we doing to influence the shape of our portfolio of products? How does it need to change? And the demand for existing products, are we seeing some margin erosion and that kind of stuff? So that's what I need my executive team looking on, is the long term, not the stuff that they pay me to execute in the short term. And so there's a couple other ones, but this last one, purchasing, ignoring the planning system. Geez, what a shame if we are changing our plan so much that the purchasing group is looking at their exception messages out of MRP and saying, I'm not going to follow that. It's crazy. It's so nervous. I've called the same supplier 3 times this month to expedite, de-expedite, and finally cancel. So there's just some signs that say that we're not working in unison. So maybe you felt some of those. Let me tell you a little bit about this. I mentioned this 24-month horizon on IBP. And so if I think about how we spend our time, integrated business planning, or if you use the term sales and operations planning, that's cool. It's about 15% of the time in the review that we're looking backwards. And when I say that, we tend to see companies start off the review with some sort of KPI review. How did we do last month? Are we improving? Are we seeing some deterioration maybe in our on time and full, right? Having those kind of conversations. And those are needed, right? Because if I'm a production, a supply chain executive, and I'm seeing that my production plan performance is declining, and then I give you a 24-month projection, you may question my credibility, right? So I need to have ownership, and I need to talk through in some part of that meeting around, hey, here's why our production plan performance is a little rough. We expect there may be some portion of discussion over the next 3 months. Fair enough, there could be some detailed things that come up that really need to be escalated, and we need to have some conversation. But the true nature of integrated business planning says our focus is that 4 to 24 months. We're really looking out and saying, what decisions, and that time zone, that's the executive's responsibility. What decisions need to be made on that long term? And that could be huge capital investment or divestment, right? We could be onshoring or offshoring, those kind of things. In order to support the success, what we found is ITP has got to spend 75% of its time focused on the next 13 weeks. And so every single week, we're talking about the next 13 weeks. It's a rolling 13 weeks. And if we can get the executive team to understand that if there's a problem in that horizon, we will escalate it. We have found that the executive team gets a comfort level in their gut, and they say, I got a team that understands the next 13 weeks. I am comfortable focusing 75% of my time in that management business review over the next 4 to 24 months. So that gives you kind of an idea. And certainly in ITP, there's a weekly measures, and we're trying to flag some things as they come up, whether we're tracking some consumption of forecasts, run rate of sales orders, or we're looking at how we're utilizing our capacity, those kind of things. That tends to be that 25%, but 75% mostly focused on that 13-week horizon. We doing all right on questions there, Ken?
Sorry, I was muted.
Okay. Yeah,
So far,
classic
so good.
principle.
No,
Silence
no
is approval.
exactly.
Wonderful.
Yeah, no questions yet. People are just taking it all in.
Awesome. Thank you. When we think about master scheduling, I spent some time in the master scheduling chair, and I, for the last 15 years, have been teaching master scheduling for Oliver White. One of the things we talk about is, where does a master scheduler take control? And we talk about things like planning time fences. And I think, folks, as you work through getting your certifications, you understand that there is a time fence. And for 15 years, I've been talking about it with the following visual that says, there is some place on the horizon where I'm making stuff. I've launched that order. I'm going to produce a product, and if I'm adding value to that raw material, and you can see the cost dollars down there, which is just meant to indicate it's expensive to change. I got a process rolling down my manufacturing line, and if I decide to do something else and stop that process, that gets pretty expensive, right? I'm tearing down setups. I might be throwing out material. So pretty expensive in the firm zone. Then we also talk about this next, which is sort of a trading zone that says, I haven't started anything. So if you want to change your mind about what I'm going to make, I'd really rather do it in the trading zone. I've got material on order. It's probably coming in. I've done some capacity planning. So my cost is fairly minimum, particularly if I can trade between products that use like materials. If I'm trading between products that use very different materials, that could get kind of pricey. I'm swapping out some stuff, expediting some raw materials, but I'd rather make changes in the trading zone than in the firm zone. The other thing we often talk about is that whole horizon is the firm zone. That's my manufacture time. The trading zone tends to be my cumulative lead time, which takes into account the purchasing of raw materials. So now I have a cumulative lead time at the end of this trading zone. And you see down there that at the bottom of the slide, it says cumulative lead time. And then parenthetically, it says effective cumulative lead time. And that's just to say that for some companies that have significantly long raw material lead times, sometimes I'll buy a mountain of it and say, let's always have a bunch of that. So we've effectively taken that lead time out of our cumulative lead time. But at the end of that cumulative lead time is where my initial planning time fence is. And I transition into this other time zone that I call the free, which says, commercial team, if you want to make changes in what the mix is going to be that I should be making, or you want to be sure that we'll have the material to fill an order, it'd be swell if you could make those promises outside of the planning time fence in this free zone, because I have at a relatively low cost the ability to flex out there compared to what happens once I've got materials on order. And so there's my planning time fence. As I move inside, I'm firming up my schedules. And in fact, inside of the planning time fence for many companies, we'll use our ERP systems to draw that line. And we'll say inside of that, only the master scheduler can put in orders. And outside of that, the computer is welcome to put planned orders. But inside of that, the computer cannot, it can make recommendations, but it may not make those changes inside of that planning time fence. And so a mantra we like to use, a nice one, says, inside of the planning time fence, let's manage demand to match supply. And so now that gets into demand control and demand management, which I'll touch on, but fundamentally I'm a supply guy, so I'm going to kind of keep this conversation supply chain focused. But the idea is that, hey, I've now got a master schedule inside of that planning time fence. It'd be swell if we could sell the stuff I was planning on making. And for those of you that have worked through your master scheduling or our master scheduling, know that as I put together a master schedule, all of a sudden ERP systems are able to produce or calculate available to promise. And now customer service is hopefully promising what I'm actually planning on making. The flip side of that says, out in that free zone, I'm going to work the supply plan to match what your demand plan is. And so again, back to my conversation earlier is, if you're going to make changes, it would be really great if you would make the changes to the demand plan outside of the planning time fence. And so there's a couple of decision points in there that I'm going to chat about in a minute. Whoops, sorry, didn't realize I got that far ahead. I'll just talk about, there is a decision point here at the planning time fence. And I'm looking at saying, okay, what am I going to put together for a master schedule inside of this? Because I have a lot of recommendations for my ERP system. And then there's always a decision point between the trading and firm as I'm getting ready to launch orders, right? Because now I'm pretty committed once I start issuing materials to work orders and marching down that production process. And you know, one of the things that experienced planners know that new planners learn is that, yeah, the computer can let me make any changes I want, but I'll just reference back to this sentence at the top is don't change the plan faster than the supply chain can respond. And so I can sit there and I can bang on my keyboard all day long, but if my suppliers don't have the flexibility or that's hugely expensive, I'm going to make changes that are not going to happen. So trying to settle some of that down, hence master scheduling. We've got folks only reacting to firm planned orders inside of that planning time fence. So I'm getting to the 13 weeks. Here's the 3 buckets. And as I started 2 years ago working with a team on integrated tactical planning, I had to get it straight in my head. What would the conversations be over a 13-week period? And so here's what I did, is I said, I don't think I would talk about every week specifically. I think there are groups of weeks where there are some specific discussions that go on. So the first thing I did is I said, all right, let's put on the master scheduling hat and think through it. And so I'm going to look all the way out at 13 weeks, and I'm going to say, what would I be doing right there at the planning time fence? And I would, of course, be looking at the first time I'm disaggregating the demand plan and saying, okay, I saw that monthly number in integrated business planning. Now I'm disaggregating it into specific part numbers, specific volumes, specific quantities. And so I'm doing the work of firming the master schedule. I might be planning to incorporate over that 13 weeks any of the significant productive maintenance activities that are going on, right? Because that's going to take some capacity away from me, and I probably ought to be planning it in the details. And of course, as I start to establish a firm master schedule, customer service is now seeing available to promise quantities based on my supply plan. And so now I'm really putting together, here's how I'd like to see some promises rolling in based on the way I'm going to be building product. So then I think, all right, so that's a lot of work, right? That every week as more and more stuff rolls in, that's the main focus of a master scheduler. And then we start saying, all right, weeks 10 through 12. And by the way, I appreciate that this sounds prescriptive. I'm just trying to lay out a model. When I work with clients, we sit down and they'll say, no, Dave, weeks 4 to 9 we'd look at in one group. So run with me, if you will. This is just an initial, and then we tailor it, and you could tailor it yourself. So I'm saying weeks 10 through 12, as a master scheduler, I'm doing all the work of week 13, and I'm also watching my firm orders or orders from customers start to come in. And so I'm watching and saying, geez, I was planning to have 10,000 units available of this item, and I'm watching customers' orders come in for something completely different. I'm just trying to track where the movement is going, make sure my supply plan is in line with the way my customers are ordering. And then I'm going to say that as I get into, going the wrong way, aren't I? As I get into weeks 6 through 9, I'm saying interfamily trading. So now I'm saying, just like I was starting to allude to, I'm seeing orders come in an area that I didn't plan a lot of supply. So now I'm saying, oh, okay, they wanted the red ones, not the blue ones. the majority of the parts are the same. I could trade between those two families, and I'm starting to work the trading zone a lot during that time period, because I can see weeks 4 through 5, it's got a line there that says start of production. So I'm going to start sending work orders out to the shop floor in my world of 4 weeks of manufacturing. So kind of an important part, trying to get the alignment set up correctly. And then I say, all right, now I'm into weeks 4 and 5. And my job is to look at, okay, I've got some changes in volume. I'm starting to see some bottlenecks on the shop floor as I load it up. And I'm trying to work through some balancing to see what I can do. I start to get into week 2 and 3, and we know this all too well. Some unplanned supply outages for many of my clients these days. They seem to be unplanned supply chain deliveries. Could be some machinery or some labor challenges, certainly thanks to COVID. All of a sudden we're working fewer shifts, or we just can't cover some stuff. So we're working the details in this week 2 to 3. And then as I get into week 1, often from a supply perspective, I'm saying, phew, okay, here's what I have this week available to ship. And I'm looking through all my customer orders and figuring out who's going to get what. So now I've described on a weekly basis, these are the types of discussions I have in these different time periods. So I start to say, all right, those were good discussions, very supply side focused. And I got back to some of these things at the beginning that says, all right, MRP or ITP aligns upwards to the business plan. Great. And that establishes, but my weekly planning that sits between that is now saying, am I still on track? So I did all that stuff, that 13-week review, and I was looking at orders. I still need to come back and test. Am I going to hit the IBP plan that I committed to? And am I actually making good decisions in terms of what we're going to ship? So that's what I'm doing with integrated tactical planning starts to come in. And just to show you, across the top, this is just one view. I don't know if it's helpful, but it talks about, we have integrated business planning, or S&OP, and it's running a monthly process. Maybe it's looking 36 months, 24 months is the minimum, as I said. And these meetings take place throughout the month, but it's only once a month. But we're saying then there's weekly planning activities that support that. And then there's also daily planning that supports that. And by the way, the integrated tactical planning is right here. So I walk through those 13 weeks. And really what I'm doing is I'm looking at orders that are coming in daily, and I'm checking against our commitments up above. And so it fits very nicely right through the middle here, directing down what we should be doing on a daily basis and directing up or testing up to say, am I still in alignment with that IBP plan? Another way of looking at it, this puts together the whole model that says, I have a model of integrated business planning. So it's a product review, a demand review, a supply review that ends up in a management business review. In order to conduct a product review, which is talking about your portfolio, I need detailed activities going on. Somebody looking at my portfolio and saying, here's what we're going to change over the next few years. Here's the puts and takes to our portfolio. And then, of course, we have some project management that is going on that says, yeah, here's the research and development folks, and here's the marketing that's going on to promote it. And certainly some resource management that says, do I have enough supply chain to start producing these new items? What am I doing to maybe outsource them if we don't have the technology? But all those work together in order to have a monthly product review. Same in the demand. I've got market management, demand management. So market's saying, what is the market calling for? Here's my existing products. How are we managing those? What sort of promotional, and what are our customers saying down here? Those roll up on a monthly basis to run a demand review. And then here's my supply chain management. And a big element of it is my supply point, the 4 walls of my facility that says, how are we doing on being able to deliver? And of course, we're always integrating with our suppliers to know if we're going to have the materials and what the cost is going to be, et cetera, that roll up into that supply review. So I start to think through of integrated tactical planning as sort of it's the communication link that says on a weekly basis, here's how I'm meeting my supply plan, my demand plan, and my product plan. And it integrates right into sales and operations planning. It's going to take, so I had some questions. Folks would say, all right, Dave, I've heard of sales and operations execution. Is that similar? It is similar. I will say that. However, we're looking at product execution. So we would definitely be looking at how we're doing over that 13-week period in being prepared to launch a new product, as an example. We're looking at demand execution, demand control, that's saying, when we put together a demand plan, we took a forecast, like a statistical forecast, and then we layered on top of that, what are we going to do for sales activities over that 13-week horizon that make it more than just a forecast? It is a demand plan because we've layered in activities. So are we executing those activities, and are they successful? And then, of course, supply execution, which is that 13 weeks, which I just walked you through to give you an example. So we think integrated tactical planning adds in for sure the product execution. It also results in a short-term financial plan, which is a little bit different than S&OE. So I had that question in there. I wanted to put this slide in just to address it in case it came up. The other thing that was going on as we were working on supply execution is there's been tremendous discussions around demand execution. And I was kind of excited to see it. To be fair, I try to stay in my lane and just talk about supply chain most of the time. However, there's great stuff going on in the demand management area. And we sent Ken a really great white paper on demand control that I'm hoping you'll have a chance to forward out, because it talks a lot about activities on the demand execution side that are going on. So look at this. My view as a master scheduling was that demand management just gave me a crappy forecast once a month and then never looked back at it again. The reality is there's great stuff going on in the demand management field these days, and I was naive. And so doing what is required to help make the demand plan happen. They're looking at their plan, their assumptions, and they're saying, are we doing it? Executing the demand plan, or executing the constrained demand plan when supply is insufficient. So imagine that. We communicated with the commercial team during the sales and operations planning process, and we said, I see that you can sell 100,000 units. We only currently have the capability of producing 75,000 units because we've got a machine down. Now, the commercial team isn't saying, tough luck. They're saying, got it. We're going to work to try to steer demand out later in the horizon so that we're not exacerbating a constrained supply position. And order entry, order promising, and prioritization. So now they're working with customer service, order promising, and they're getting involved rather than the supply folks calling and saying, you ordered 10,000 A's and you ordered 10,000 B's. I can give you 5,000 of one. Which one do you want? And they say, yes. They're actually getting involved and actively prioritizing. If you have to make a choice, here's what we want to see. And then they're also measuring their execution to say, did we actually deliver the demand plan? So that was in isolation. And now we're saying, this is a great time to pull these groups together into a weekly quorum and have these conversations so we're far more integrated in our forward-going plans. And so this quorum is made up of demand managers. They could be execution managers, but they are looking over this 13 weeks, and they're going to communicate, you know, we had this great plan for this promotional activity, and it's just not going to happen. Or we just heard from Walmart that they're not going to run that campaign that they expected to. And by the way, we had a high demand plan, and now we don't think it's going to happen. Well, great. We're going to have an honest conversation about it. hopefully further out on the 13 weeks, but at least we're aware of it rather than the month ending as it used to happen to me. And then I would just curse the commercial team for not selling what they told me they were going to sell. So we're having explicit conversations about how the execution is going. My supply planner is now, I'm attending these meetings. I may have shop supervisors there. I may have to bring in maintenance folks, and I'll talk at the end. I got a list of other people that might join this meeting, but fundamentally, I'm updating the team on the 13-week horizon. This was my firm master schedule, and here's where I'm having some difficulties producing it, so that we're going back and forth with the demand managers and saying, how can we handle this over the 13-week horizon? Customer service is in here. I really like customer service in here. One of the things I was working at a client that customer service routinely brought in is that we would see changes in customer ordering patterns, and they had ideas. They would say, oh, that's Anheuser-Busch. They're usually ordering in the 3rd week of the month. So the first 2 weeks, we're not seeing a lot of sales orders. We're thinking, oh, the demand plan's going to be crashed. We're not going to make it. But customer service had that insight and said, no, it's 3rd week. Just wait. We're still good. Don't overreact. Or other times they would come in and say, in fact, they ordered a whole bunch last month. I think it's just a timing thing, and actually they'll sell it, they'll buy it again next month. So love seeing customer service in there, much like I've got folks producing product on the shop floor that are attending and telling me the reality of my supply plan. I've got the folks that are talking to customers or taking orders and communicating what some of those traditional buying patterns are. And then I've got the product management stuff. And having the product folks come in. I don't know how often this happens to you, but it's a challenge for many companies where I've got a new product and they want to run a couple of beta units. And I'm saying, no, I'm trying to run production for my customers. I don't have any time to do some development work. I can't give you time on my machine. But the reality says, if I'm not working on doing some of that beta production work, then we're never going to sell that new product, which might have far better margin than anything I'm producing today. So at least we're having these conversations. The other side of that is maybe some of you make products where you have customer acceptance testing. Customers want to come in, they want to see the machine you're making for them, they want to see its performance specifications. Well, shoot, I better, as a master scheduler, be giving some time to the product engineers to develop that product if a customer is going to come in and see it. So again, you can start to see this quorum all represents some pretty key elements of an integrated discussion over this 13-week horizon. Just a little discussion around if you have multiple sites. So we get into companies that are pretty vertically integrated. And so if I look at this model, and wasn't that automation magical? Yeah, that was hours of work. I appreciate the nod there, Ken. Easily amused here in New Hampshire, I apologize. So imagine I've got a number of customer-facing plants. In this case, I've got 4 customer-facing plants. I would expect that there would be 4 ITP processes, that each plant has products that they're making, that they're providing to customers, and they need to be looking at the balance over that 13-week horizon. Of course, they may need to throw up the flag and say, we're completely overloaded. I wonder if one of my other customer-facing plants could handle that. That would be a great discussion. And then imagine here I've got some intermediate warehousing, and then I've got my base materials. Well, the customer-facing ITP process for these converting plants is going to pull in one of their supply inputs would be, how am I positioned for raw materials in order to satisfy products? And so there's not necessarily an ITP process going on at the warehouse as much as they're attending to be able to communicate where we stand. Maybe they've got a supermarket type structure there at the warehouse and how we're positioned in order to deliver raw materials. The flip side says I may have some base materials that I own the infrastructure to make, and their customer is the intermediate warehousing. So they're going to have an ITP process that is looking at what do they need to replenish to the warehouse and how are they doing on raw materials. And I've put in, we've got some external production sites. So this plant may be responsible for not only the volumes that they produce, but also integrating some external suppliers as well into their ITP process. That's how you would, that's just a simple example of how I might break up the ITP processes. Now, I had a company where they said, we've got 3 different base materials. They all can make the same stuff. So they took all 3 plants and put it under one ITP process because it was the cumulative demand from all of my customer-facing plants that they had to solve. And so they decided to run all 3 plants within one ITP review every single week. Worked like a charm. Last thing I want to say on this chart is the red circles with the trucks. One of the things that was really fun is that many of the plants said, oh, we can never look out 13 weeks, we don't know. And as they practiced and got good at it, all of a sudden they realized, actually, we have pretty good insight just 3 months away of what customer orders are going to be developing. And they were able to communicate it. And all of a sudden, intercompany logistics and then customer logistics started to have 13 weeks of horizon to start looking at what the moves between plants were going to be, what the inventory levels were going to be at different warehouses. And in the past, it had always been a last minute phone call saying, all right, I've got 10,000 pounds. Can you move it tomorrow? And they're scrambling. So all of a sudden they integrated logistics, and logistics was now for the first time able to take advantage of rail, of trucking, and some of overseas shipping, rather than everything being last minute expedite. So some really great stuff came out of some of the work where we start to say 13 weeks and what are the details. Of course, it's going to plan. Of course, it's going to change. But to give some insight to logistics was a huge win. So I'm getting towards the end. I just want to talk a couple of things here. What I've done is I took my supply side, and what I did is I layered in a few other things into the discussion. The first thing at the top that I want to talk about is this is just 13 weeks, and things get stressful. And particularly within the start of production, the folks attending this review had better have the authority to make decisions, because we're a freight train. We're happening. This is rolling. So what I say is decisions need to be made in the meetings. The right people have to be there to make decisions. Outside of this, we start to say, all right, maybe you can come back next week with the answer, and that's okay if it's still 13 weeks out. Though for some companies that may be insufficient. But I needed to stress the importance of this is not a show up unprepared kind of meeting. This is a meeting of I'm coming prepared, and we're going to work out a solution here. I've also fleshed out a couple of other things. I tried to be clever using some different colors. If you're colorblind, I apologize. I'm going to read the words just to help out. 13 weeks out, I might be talking about new product introduction readiness. Where are we? Is the bill of material done? Are we sure that we have stability if I produce 100,000 pounds of it, that it can sit on the shelf? Where are we at on bringing up new machinery? Is that ready for it? I also want, the planning bomb updates. So for some companies, they have a family. And within that family that they review at IBP, it fleshes out based on a planning bill of material. Well, here's where I would like the commercial team, typically marketing, could be some sales input, but are there any changes in the percentages looking forward to the planning bill of material? Yeah, we used to be 50-50 red and blue, but then we added in a green one. Well, what percentage of those are we going to sell? And is it going to cannibalize any of the red or blue ones? That's an example of making changes to our planning bill of material. And we're going to get some of those updates based on that sales activity. If I get into week 13, so I'm still looking at customer orders as they come in, but I'm going to get some market updates. And here's one of the things I experienced with a company, a client that made video games, is they would get market updates on what their competitors were planning on launching. And so that could aggressively advance a new product introduction. If a competitor was going to launch a football game and they had a football game, geez, you don't want your competitor to launch the newest version of the football game before you do. So that's an example of market updates. Or it could be, we missed it completely. All right, well, let's ramp down the resources that are working on that product right now because we got to focus on something else. Coming in on that week 6 to 9, customer acceptance testing. If you have products that are heavily engineered, typically pretty expensive, I find that customers like to come in and see it. They like to make sure it's going to be okay, make sure it meets their specs. And there's really few things more embarrassing than calling a customer and saying, yeah, we're not quite ready yet. Or could you come a week later? So let's just see, so that's taking the pulse on saying, where are we in terms of lining up for that customer acceptance testing? And then I've added some stuff here, sales execution tactics in full play. And so sales execution tactics, it's in that demand control white paper that Ken's going to send out. But it talks about, as I'm getting customer orders and I'm running out of supply, can I sell around the issue? Folks are calling in and asking for 100 count bottles, and I'm saying, yeah, can I give you a deal on 2 50 count bottles, that kind of stuff. Or if you've ever ordered a computer with Dell online, right? They're really good at it because you'll start to configure it and they'll be suggesting other already made configurations that they might have in stock that would have a very short delivery time. That's selling around shortages. And then in weeks 2 and 3, now I've got, customer services working around selling around shortages. They're also influencing the customer. So they're right there on top of it. And get this, look in week 1. I said the last time that in week 1, the supply chain team would look at what I had completed on the shelf and I'm deciding what customers. And now I'm going to turn that over because I'm in ITP. I've got sales and commercial people there. And I'm saying, here's what I have. And they're going to direct the shipping priorities according to strategy. So they could be saying, David, I know that's a good customer. And I love that you're trying to ship it to that customer. But this is a new geography that we've never done business before. And I'm willing to take a little bit of heat from a good customer if we can just penetrate this new market. So now we're getting some really good information. Also, products launched with promotion. So for some of you that are in the consumer goods area, you know that if you line up a promotion for a new product and the product is nowhere to be found, it can be very frustrating for customers. And so making sure that we're in lockstep, delivery of or filling supply chains or delivery of our product with those promotional activities can be a huge win for a lot of customers. Okay, escalation. I put this slide in because there's some great discussions that happen. And it's important. This is where the executive team gets involved in ITP. We start to have conversations with them to say, if I have minor changes in my demand or supply plan, or it could be product, and then we can talk with them to help them explain to us how much degrees of freedom. Can I put a dollar amount that you're comfortable with me making a decision, a change in this time period, and we'll have the executive teams get involved. Because again, we want them to have comfort in their belly that says the process is being managed. And if I don't hear from anybody, I know that things are in control. So we get them involved. We say, give us a dollar amount that we can make changes. The authorization, I just need a supply planner, a demand manager. So here it's kind of like doing a RACI, right? Who can be involved in making this decision? And by the way, all I need is an email, and we'll define as a team what some of the base information is. But if you send me an email on a change that costs less than this, we're good. By the way, if there's a moderate change, then I might need to get directors involved. And by the way, we have a basic change form that I want you to fill out because we need it documented. And then, and as I move up in these examples, I start to say, all right, major changes, big money, might impact customer service, financial projections. CEOs might be a little extreme that we're going to go to the CEO in the next 13 weeks, but could happen, right? Could be big products, could be shipping nuclear submarines. That might be CEO material. And by the way, it needs an email, followed up, fully fleshed out scenario. You know, we need some really good stuff. So when we work with companies to implement this, and you know, you take this slide and you can do it at your own company, is okay, if I was talking 13 weeks and I wanted to give my executive team a comfort zone that I will involve them if it's a big issue, we're going to lay out this escalation criteria. Just to give you a real life example rather than talking to a slide, I saw where there was limited supply and an executive sat in on the ITP meeting, and the executive said, after the meeting, I want customer service and the master scheduler to meet with me to talk through how to prioritize the customers that are going to get the limited supply. And I was able to have a really great coaching visit afterwards to say, this is your opportunity as an executive to do an executive's job. Define the prioritization, give it to this team, and understand that they'll follow it. And anytime they can't follow your prioritization, they'll bring it to you. So that became an escalation criteria. And it was really fun. And fortunately, he didn't get upset with me. I said I'd get to here. I just wanted to give you some examples. I talked about the quorum. That's the base. That's the minimum group of folks that ought to be involved in an integrated tactical planning process. However, every company has some unique stuff going on. And so I just wanted to say, we've seen all of these, and we'll probably add more red circles the next time I give this talk. But it's just an idea of other folks that might get involved. And I could pick on any of them. I'm going to pick on a finite scheduler, just because that's fun. I see companies moving and saying, you know what, we've got some great software we're trying to use. We're going to have a finite scheduler working with us. So a finite scheduler is not necessarily a person. It's probably more a tool, but we've got somebody who's working and managing the algorithms that the finite scheduler works within. And so if we're changing customer prioritization, I need somebody who's defining the rules to the finite scheduler to change the algorithm so that the finite scheduler is now scheduling in tune with my customer prioritization. And so there's an example of why they might be involved over the next 13 weeks, especially if we're making a last minute change in prioritization. I won't go through these, just to give you an idea that I have a quorum, and often there's other folks that will join in on the process. Some are invited just for the meeting and some are standing. This should have said master scheduling at the top, and I don't know what I did wrong with the slide, so I'll apologize. But just if any questions came up on master scheduling, and I knew we were going to send this out to you folks, I wanted to make sure I had the definition of master scheduling because I've talked quite a lot about it in this presentation.
Hey, I figured I'd step in and ask a question here. I'll try to formulate something.
Yeah.
I see a lot of, if I were to do a AS9100 ISO audit and I wanted to see how well the system of communication worked, one of the things we'd be looking for is a rather integrated system of procedures that would spell out all these steps so that they all will fall in line Because I see a lot of stuff that's going on here, and I'm saying to myself, how the hell do these people know what to do? Do all these things, integrate and push it together. I know there's a great deal of level of work that's put together to using computers, obviously, and a whole series of databases like SAP or what have you that's out there to guide you along. I know I'm just taking it from one person's in the area that his whole responsibility is incoming, receiving inspection, or someone who has to delegate out work needs to go to the suppliers. See, I know people that I know who work, like I say, in that group, they're concentrated on their jobs, their titles, their procedures, and even some of those procedures are very esoteric, well written, but can be confusing to understand. I just want to know how it coordinates with everybody. And I know there's a bottom line for everybody to get out there and get certain things done. So it's like, I always like to compare with sports. If you got the quarterback in the huddle, and he says, we're going to go do a down and out pass. We're going to go, you go long, you go short, you take a button hook and go. And then and all the linemen have to be coordinating, know exactly what they do each time. So it's how do you get one guy like the quarterback, he organizes everybody, throws the ball, who's getting information, how to do things from the coach. So when you have all these steps that you got to do, the coordination is what I'm looking at. How does it all get coordinated so that things are, if somebody drops the ball, so to speak, and you start seeing information showing problems are happening. So how much emphasis is on coordination so that everybody knows what's going on?
Yeah, thanks, Larry. And so I think about days of yore when I used to run a weekly master scheduling meeting. And I would give an update over the next 3 months. Here's what I'm producing. Here's what my challenges are. Here's where I'm having some challenges with hitting the demand plan. And so that makes me one of the quorum members of the 4 quorum members. And then we have the demand or commercial folks doing the same thing that says, now I'm going to meet David's plan and I'm going to talk about what we're seeing for customer sales over that period. And so it's taking what I was doing as a supply person and just formalizing it to say, here's what I'm planning on producing and aligning it with the commercial plan and how it's changing on a weekly basis. So as a master scheduler, I'm actively managing that schedule. I'm going to take a snapshot of it over by week over the next 13 weeks. And that's what my obligation to bring to the meeting is. And the commercial persons, that's their obligation. Now, to your point,
obligations that they have to do, and they got. That's what I would want to know. If I'm saddled with certain things I got to do, hopefully I get them done at a certain time, and I try to get to them and then basically tell what's the problem and getting it there. But to me, that'd be like constant communication. Is that a problem with that?
But I wouldn't call it constant communication, only in that I'm working my job constantly. So I'm seeing changes in demand plans and I'm responding to them. And then I'm going to line it up once a week to have a discussion of, let's sit down and say, is that demand really going to happen? Or should I change sources of supply? And to give you an idea, because I think you're tracking towards it, Larry, is that I think some of the best tools are Power BI, because it pulls very quickly from my systems. And I see my most successful clients setting up a dashboard that talks about the supply plan. It talks about capacity. It looks at forecast versus customer orders so that I don't have to jump through a lot of hoops to put a presentation once a month. Rather, I'm walking in and we're sitting down communally around a dashboard that has been set up.
And the other part, sorry to interrupt, but if you go back to the Ollie White checklist, it really does list a very formal communication process amongst all the players in this process.
Enough to answer your question, Larry? You want to keep going? I apologize.
That's good.
I don't know that I had a lot more left. Oh, I just wanted to show, here's an example of sort of what the cadence looks like. It's pretty classic in terms of updates from product management, updates from demand. We've got my master schedule that's also testing against whether we've got production on track, warehouse isn't overfull, I can still deliver, and it's coming into some sort of critique, and then we run the review on a weekly basis. And as I said, this looks like a lot. I appreciate that. The Power BI is so critical in getting that set up at first. So that's a flow to the process for you. And I think I'm out of time, so I just need to say thank you. And then I'll go over here for some questions. I almost got my timing right.
So
Other questions?
Go ahead, team. Jump in for questions, please.
Hey, Dave, one of the questions I have is, I really love this process, but is there some way for correctables coming out of this? Because if we keep tripping over the same landmines or so, we're just going to keep facing the same issues.
Yeah, great. So let me see if I've got that right. I think that was John that asked the question.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, John. So it's a very in the heat of the firefight meeting, but I totally agree that if we're seeing that we're constantly missing deliveries from a supplier, right? We need to go after that and understand it. So I concur with you. I haven't seen a client use it for that yet, but it makes perfect sense if we're looking at it every week, right? That's an opportunity to gather data.
I have to assume that the all the suppliers, you know, that you have to have a system where you know that there's the product that you have in product or the raw materials or what have you, what they're doing, the level of complexity of the product, and how you need to keep on these people to make sure they get at certain stages of development, get these reports, where are they now, how much time have they got to get this part done, is there any problems they're having? If it's that important too, they should have somebody down there doing audits, or just enough to see what's going on. Competent B also puts attention to it. You know, a lot of times people have multiple suppliers and multiple people they're working to, not just you. You're not their only customer. So if you think it's if they got somebody out that's paying bigger bucks, they're going to put their best people over there. I see this happen all the time. Where I went as part of the government, I put pressure on. I don't want to tell you who I work with, but tell them I want to know how good are these people you talk about? What's their status? What's their record? What's their place in the building? How fast are they able to get the product on time? Do they get it on time? How many defects they have? What's the source of like I said, the complexity of the nature of what they're making, and it gets to the point where some competitors are working almost in the same world of, well, this is the best we can do, right? And then that's why I see what's happening in this country is everybody's moving to wherever they can get it done the best and the fastest and the cheapest, and that's usually the Far East. And America, we're opting to forget it, just say, how the hell with it, I'll just go to the Far East and get my work, and then all the work that you want to get done here, it becomes problematic. And then because of high costs, not on time delivery, with government, there's a Buy American Act on all contracts, which we're forcing the contractors to buy all work from the United States, all your suppliers, and none of them can come from China. Absolutely none. Okay, so I like to know how you wonder why so the government costs so much to build some of the simplest things. And I fear it's always going to be more and more of people opting to get the easy way out and get that job done at the cheapest way possible because they're being hit all the time. They can't get the product on time, so they say, "The hell with this." Now, how many times in a row are we going to do this? You know, it's just like, that's my biggest fear. I just want to know if there's anybody doing an effort to try to get the damn job done here. That's basically it. I sound like a broken record to a lot of people because I worry about this country going down the drain because all we're doing is offloading. But as part of that whole supply thing is knowing what are we doing to see that. I think Joe DeFeo brought this up one time. He said, suppliers, you don't just send it out to them and hope that they get it right. Just be there, be their conscious mind. You may find out what you're doing because this is as much money as if you did it here, but they might be doing it better for other customers to be in their face all the time. So that thing about communication thing is very important because you need to communicate. It needs to be ironed out, and I think that's very important. All right, I talk much. I could go on and on. That's what
Larry, we'll have to make you a presenter someday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. The communication is critical. I think David would agree with that.
Yeah, and I see in the text we've got, or the chat, we've got a question from Gran asking about is there? I think I'm gonna interpret a little bit, Graham. So I apologize if I get it quite wrong. But is there a rule of thumb that says how many plants should you have within one ITP process before you have individuals? And the rule of thumb that I've been using is that if the same plants can make the same products for the same customers, often there's an opportunity to combine them into one ITP process. I do find, and I will throw a caution flag, that what tends to be a really nice 30 to 45 minute review when you're one plant focused tends to grow to a couple hours. But yeah, if you think about it, if you're running 3, that's 3 almost hours versus a couple hours if we put them all together. So Graham, just a thumbs up or not if I came anywhere near close answering your question.
Yeah, that's perfect, David. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, David, have you had to revise any of this process based on the current supply chain woes that are going on out there? Or?
Oh, so no, we launched the talking about ITP 2 years ago, and we developed it, our first course, right up until December of 2019. What we did hustle to do, I will say, is it's our newest course, and we designed it because we hadn't gone live yet to be a virtual course. And it's so much, it's so much more comfortable to teach a course that was designed to be delivered virtually than to take an existing course material. I'm sure you feel the same way when you teach and try to convert it into a virtual course. So it was remarkably timely, though.
Yeah, oh, that's great. That's great. By the way, before we take more questions, I just wanted to let everyone know that I did post in the chat a whole bunch of info, primarily the survey. We care about what you think. We want to know your opinions. CEU certificate is there. I think we had a total of 96 people register tonight, which is huge. These virtual meetings are just getting bigger and bigger. So CEU certificate link is on there. So check the chat. By the way, you have to go in there now to the chat window. Copy this info and the links now, because once you close the Zoom meeting, all this info is gone. Also, the link to the recording and what David had mentioned about the white papers free resource. those will be up on the past presentations page we have on our site. I put the link there. It's not there yet. It will be there in the next day or two. Everything will be there. So that'll be really good. So go to the chat section now, copy your links, please. And that'll save you a lot of time later. And me too, because then I will be getting emails. Can you send me that link? So there you go. All right, back to the questions. Go ahead. Anyone else have questions?
Yeah, I'll jump in. So when you watch the news or you go on LinkedIn, it seems lean manufacturing is the root of all evil. When I look at this process, I was wondering how it dovetails into lean and kind of make what you need and change the schedule as needed.
John, I'm a little bit stumped in that, and let me explain why, is that I'm running this process with companies that are lean and companies that are classic make to stock. And the conversation has not been significantly different. Okay. Either one could run out of an integrated circuit, whether I was lean or I was classic make to stock. The same item was short, wasn't it? But what is really great about lean is that slide that I had that said start of production, and I could jump back to it. Start of production moves to the left, right? So that moves to the left, right? Sorry, that's not good communication. It moves to the left sooner, so that firm zone and costly changes is a much shorter period. So I tend to get better insight before I start to launch into manufacturing if I'm a lean company. So that's about the only big change.
And I apologize, I was being a little sarcastic because every time you turn on the news, all this lean thing is destroying the whole supply chain. But the idea of like what you're saying is when it drops down from weeks to days, or, you know, working with these companies, must be a whole different set of problems or solutions that come up in these meetings, rather than, yeah, we're just going to hold to these weekly buckets and we don't want to improve.
You make mention of lean. I wrote a little article in my newsletter, and I start off talking about what's the brag about being lean. So to me, it's because the whole world, America, and all businesses are being dealt a bad hand, and that you got to work now. You got to work with some smart resolve to try to get the job done with less people, less money, and your competition has grown incredibly with the Far East dominating the world market on everything. So there's just so much the businessman can do. I mean, you talk about, let's have free market. Let the businessmen have, don't have the oversight of the government keeping them from doing what they want. And what it forces what most businesses do, you're dealt a bad hand, you try to do lean, you can't buy by bulk. If you buy by bulk, you have this stuff hanging around, and then you try to sell by bulk to somebody, nobody's want to sell what you're selling by bulk because they're doing the same thing back with lean. So it's like, you're going to get to a point where I have to say there's just so much the businessman can do. You can try to do as many coordinations and integrations. When are we all going to accept that there's a point that we're going to have to say, okay, Mr. Government, help us? And then,
well, Larry, go ahead.
That's what I say. The government has to step in. We're going to go into depression. We're going to lose it all. China's going to buy all our stock, and they're going to be our new master. That's my idea.
Well, learned something new tonight. But my experience, lean is a culture. It's people working together, treating people respectfully. Not, I'm just going to get rid of everybody because I reduced my costs. It's such a process that when you look and you get the employee involvement, it's not what they put in the news, I'll tell you.
Well, it's common sense business. It's probably something people should have done many years. It's just coordinating all yourself and looking at, I just like to compare it to immunology. I see when the immune system is making antibodies, it starts off with the first shot, IgM. Let's just throw it out there, see what we can get. And then as it perfects it, it comes up with the IgG antibody. They can nail that freaking COVID virus and knock it out. But it takes a lot of coordinated effort to get there. And then, so when since 1945, we were doing it, everybody was doing it their own way, no special way, like you say, make the stuff and just coordinate, have ships, your assembly line is all over the place and your bolts all over, your stuff piled up everywhere. And then as you coordinate, you realize you're able to do that because we had no competitors. America had no competitors. What was building everything? The rest of the world was destroyed. So by the time we came around 1975, we started seeing serious competition with Germany and Japan. Before that, and as time went on, the rest of the world jumped on the bandwagon. So now we had to redesign our whole system to be smart and economical. And what we're still having problems because of, well, guess what? The Far East has a stranglehold on their economy. They know exactly what's going on. And I don't know how you're going to stop it.
I think we're a little off track here.
I think ITP is going to solve it.
Yeah, baby. Let's hope so.
Yeah, I think they got rid of green bar reports.
Awesome. Hey, I wanted to let you know also that our president of the ASCM Massachusetts Minuteman chapter is online. Mark, you want to say hello at all?
Hey, hello everyone. Sorry to join late. Welcome back, Dave. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, my cam is not working. So I guess they were out of webcams in China. So so I need to order some new ones. So anyway, I mean, I'm sure everybody enjoyed a very insightful presentation. Thank you for attending. So I did have this question. I think I see you, Dave. We've answered the question. So SNOE is very hot right now, sales and operations execution, because I think we get periodic inquiries about SNOE and how to work on it. So it seems like the buzzword has caught on. And I know I had made some posts on LinkedIn, and I know some of the old, traditional old folks, I don't want to say old folks, but traditional established Apex folks that questioned it and said, hey, it's a new form, it's just the same cow with new clothing. And it used to be called master production scheduling, So I think there was a lot of controversy, about different questions and answers on that. So, but in any case, I think SNOE, at least in industry, the industry is kind of following through, and they want this particularly because of the pandemic. But the ITP, so what you're saying is you are adding financial integration to this process into the SNOE. So SNOE plus the financial integration gives you the ITP.
Yeah. So and we saw SNOE as primarily demand control and supply integration. And I'm sorry I missed the presentation. I touched on it earlier. And what I tried to flesh out is that in ITP, we're trying to integrate the portfolio changes, what we're doing for product launches, as well as the demand control activities. And I think that one of the critical things I haven't seen in SNOE, and I apologize if I missed it and somebody else knows a lot more about it, but that tie back to saying we're on track to hit our commitment that we made in the monthly SNOP process.
Okay.
And I'm nailing it for the next 13 weeks, which is roughly 3 months, so that the executive team, when they're in SNOP, can look out that 24 months and not get sucked into that short term, because this ITP is filling that void.
Right. I am sorry, I missed the presentation, so I didn't want you to go back over again, but yeah. So maybe I'll look at the presentation when you email it, but yeah. It's a very hot topic. So.
They recorded it, so you can check the rest of it.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I'm going to have the recording there, Mark, so that'll be good. We'll get that up on the past.
Excellent.
The past presentations page. Also, David, the PDF you sent me, is it okay? Not the PPT, but the PDF. Is that okay to post?
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Okay, we will then. We'll get that up on the link is in this chat, by the way, for anyone who's still listening in. the link to that is also on this chat. Now, it's not up yet, but you can get to the past presentations page, and then in the next day or two, we'll have everything up.
All right. So Ken, when are we all going to get together in person and have a drink?
I don't know. We should
cards at least sometime soon.
It'd have to be halfway between here and New Haven.
Right, of course.
We have half New Haven's here.
Absolutely.
And Western Mass. We got to include them too.
Well, let's do it virtually.
Virtual
yes.
drink.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
I'll have a drink in our hand.
Cheers.
Yes.
All I have is water in my hydro flask.
Ken, just make sure to send everybody a bottle of wine, right? So
I love it. Now we're catching.
And next time we meet, I'll have the webcam working. We'll all toast, okay?
I love it. Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
Great.
Well, this is great. So anyone who wants to hang out and network for a few minutes, we'll be here. I'm not hanging up until everyone's ready and done. That's fine. But we did want to thank David for the great presentation. It was very insightful, thoughtful, timely, and very helpful. Thank you so much, David. You're a wizard.
It was great.
Yeah, a lot of people too.
Yeah,
so
it's great to see Parvez here too, right? I haven't seen Parvez in years.
I'll see you guys.
Hey, Mark.
Bye, Larry.
I know, yeah.
Good to hear.
All right, I'll catch up. I'll call you, Parvez. Yeah.
All right, great.
We'll call you, Dave. Thank you, Dave.
And Jim Timmons was on the line, Mark. He had to zip off, but he was on earlier.
Okay, excellent. Great.
So that was good. Yeah, Chris.
Thanks,
you like
Dave,
it?
Great presentation. It was really good.
Thank you.
It was excellent. We're all big fans of Dave Goddard. No, thank you. I appreciate it. We just, for the rest of you folks, we're all volunteers and everyone does this for no pay, including David. So we really appreciate that,
Yes, absolutely.
It's good
Western
stuff.
Thank you, Ken.
Western Mass doubled my salary this year. I get 2 times nothing.
2 times 0. I love it. Are you going to have some virtual, what do you call them, lunch and learns, John?
That's what I'm working on. I really like this idea of sending out a white paper and then following up with an expert to kind of talk through. And we mentioned the other day, Dave, let's just get back to basics. I mean, there's so many things that are broken. I took some notes, and one of the things that when I first got into scheduling, I kind of looked at it as like you're playing a game of chess. Then I read a book by a lady named Annie Duke, and what she pointed out is we're probably playing poker, because all these variables you walk into and you think of every week, the shipment's missed or this is missed, and how do you manage so you walk away with a winning bet? And I thought you really kind of painted that picture of how we can start working together to make those things happen. And I just think something like that would be an awesome presentation, because I think we're so conditioned that we develop a hypothesis, and as soon as it goes wrong, everybody jumps on you. Well, you look at all those variables you've dealt with in your career, and okay, this shipment doesn't come in, or this sales goes up, or whatever, and then you look at over a period of time. I think we just need to communicate our profession to people so they truly get an insight to what we deal with. And like I said, and the folks walking in today, it's like, okay, SAP said, order this, and they hit the button, and that's it. Yeah.
Awesome. I was going to say in reverse, we had David do his presentation first, and now the 2 white papers are coming out after for his presentation. Those will be emailed. We're going to email the links to the people that we have that registered, at least on our email database. I think Pervez is going to do the same for the people who registered on his one, the thank you letter. With you can send out the actual PDFs. We're going to send out the PDFs, and we put them up on the website as links. So we may send out the link too, in case people can't open the PDF for some unknown reason.
And Ollie White's history of white papers, they're always awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep. So that's really good. That's good.
Yeah.
Mark,
so anyone else?
Hey, Ken, one of the things I was going to say is the virtual is great, but I had the added stress that I knew my dad had dialed in. So I've not had that dad attend one of my speeches before, so that was stressful.
Oh,
It does
so your
open it
dad
up.
had dialed in to listen to you?
Yeah, my wife got him dialed in. So
That is awesome.
Wow.
yeah,
That's
pretty
awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Family reunion virtually, Dave.
Check and see if he filled in one of the feedback forms.
Yes.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. Wow,
Yeah.
that's great. That's great. See? It's a
So
family
Dave,
affair.
I'm just wondering, like, if you are in town, I think you should probably just stop by our board meeting one of these months. You know? Yeah.
Well, shoot me an invite. We'll see if we
Yeah,
can.
we'll shoot you an invite, you know, just stop by, you know, even, you know, I think that'll be good because I have to tell you, I do want to meet more and more people, but it's just the pandemic is coming in the way, you know, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
For the board meetings, are they also like, is it hybrid too, where it's virtual and also, okay, because I would actually like, now that I'm back affiliated with with you guys, I'd love to check it out and sit on a board meeting, see how things are going. Because when I was up in Boston, right now I'm in South Carolina. I'm running a contract manufacturing company in South Carolina and affiliated. But before then, I was running a tech company doing telecoms, global supply chain up in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how I came to be in South Carolina, but still affiliated with everyone up there, and still want to be active, in the chapter.
Sure. I mean, are you a member of our chapter, the ACM Minuteman?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
Excellent. Yeah.
I'm
Definitely.
actually,
We'll shoot you an invite for one of those meetings and you can join virtually. Yeah.